So I got kind of halfway through A-levels and I realised that I thought I was probably going to flunk them, to be fair. And so I looked at my, looked at my results, looked at the mocks, and I went, this isn't going to look too good. I think it's just get out there and find a way to start doing it. I mean, for me, I was lucky that, the people that I went with weren't expecting a degree. Then again, the job probably wasn't at that kind of level anyway, but actually just getting your foot in. I mean, if it's relationship centric, so for us, it's all about the customer service. If we've got someone who's got great personality and great personable skills and good tech skills, we can train the other bits around the edge of it. So I think don't be put off by the fact if you haven't got a degree. Don't be put off by not having certain qualifications. It opened my eyes when it got to the point where my mum was starting to ask me about ChatGPT. I'm like, you've got that kind of technology curve of adopters and the early adopters, and it just the speed it's picked up. And for us, even things like building out kind of automated onboarding, automated offboarding, taking certain kind of key repetitive things that people are doing and just finding ways to automate them, and using some AI logic that's reflective of the fact that if you train it on all of this stuff, I mean, what's the value? Is it just going to go and rip those people off and steal it? I don't know. It's really tricky.
Welcome to this week's episode of Akoni Tech Talks. We are joined by Craig today. Craig, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited. Thank you.
We've got a lot to unpack as well. So let's start at the beginning. Now, when we caught up before, you kind of mentioned that you found your way into IT by chance.
I did.
So can you tell us more about that journey and what led you to set up your own business?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a bumbling story, to be fair. It's probably not the traditional route into tech. So I was at school. I was doing my GCSEs. Kind of thought I wanted to follow my father's footsteps and get into kind of engineering, which I thought, well, I probably need to do maths, physics, technology. I think were the three I picked for my A-levels, and I must admit, I think my teachers' reporters would probably say, right, could try harder. I'm not the hardest trier at stuff like that. So I got kind of halfway through A-levels and I realised that I thought I was probably going to flunk them, to be fair. And so I looked at my results, looked at the mocks, and I went, this isn't going to look too good. I had a choice at that point in time to either sort of sit back and sort of hold back a year and do the A-levels all over again. And I must admit, I was really struggling with physics. I enjoyed it at GCSE. I found it far too hard at A-level for my brain. So I thought, do you know what? No, I'm going to drop out of school. And at that point in time, it was all of my friends were off to university. So I thought it was kind of a big life decision. It was quite scary because I didn't know what I was going to do. I had really no idea what I liked. I knew I liked the PC. I'd always been playing around with computers and coding and fiddling around. So I went to the job centre. I know people don't really do that anymore, but I went to the job centre and thought, well, I'll see what jobs are around, and ended up kind of landing into a job that was the beginnings of an IT job. I thought it was going to be a programming job, and it ended up being a job kind of bench testing, so plugging in and testing a big pile of scanners. Now, we don't even really have scanners anymore. Some printers might have a scanner, but these were standalone flatbed scanners.
Yeah.
Plug them in, press the button, does it scan, and put it on a pile. It was so dull. But I got in there, worked my way through that business. They had a few different arms, and I ended up starting, I think it was probably in the late 90s. I'm just trying to think timelines. It feels like a long time ago. Late 90s, I was then doing some virtual reality stuff, so it was well ahead of it kind of becoming mainstream. We were designing and developing, we were taking kind of CAD drawings of things like Waitrose stores and producing them in 3D and making a walkthrough so that they could visualise what the store looked like. And this was pretty cutting edge at the time. It was a team of about 5 or 6 of us, and that really sparked me into my love of IT. I then moved from there into kind of another business, became an internet developer, so I got into coding and development, and then that company itself was kind of doing IT kind of, well, at the time we called it IT support. Nowadays we call it managed services, but they were doing IT support. Yeah. And I thought, well, I think I could do a bit of this. So I spun the business up. I was moonlighting, to be brutally honest. I started up in my spare time. Don't encourage anybody to do it. And my bosses found out, and I thought, oh, crikey, I'm for the chop here. But they were super supportive. It was amazing. So actually, they let me run that business kind of on the part-time, because I wasn't really competing with what they were doing. They were doing big enterprise stuff. I was doing pretty much home PCs at the time. Did that for a bit, did it probably a year doing that, and then kind of left and went full-time with what I was doing. And then, I mean, that would have been sort of 2001, 2002 time, and then that's the start of the story, and it's really evolved from there. So
here we are, over 20 years later. But,
got the scars to prove it as well.
But looking back, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges or turning points in those early years of building OneFix from the ground up?
I think it was completely bootstrapped, so I didn't have really any funding or money to do it, so I just started up. I was very lucky at the time. I was living with my parents. It truly was a garage startup. I mean, it hasn't quite reached the heights of Hewlett-Packard and the other famous garage startups, but it was a garage startup. Yeah. So I think the key there, the hardest challenges were just how do I find customers, what am I going to do? Because I started part-time, I could really only do domestic work, so it was kind of, it was lovely. It was going around and sort of seeing, I don't mean to be condescending, but it was little old ladies and fixing their home PCs, and they had a problem with something. They didn't know how to do it because tech was pretty new at that point in time, and I felt like a tech whiz kid, and I could go and fix the problems for them. And things have changed a lot since then. We don't do anything domestic anymore, but there is a little bit of me that misses that, because actually there was something really nice about that kind of face-to-face, help people out, really see the results of solving the problem. So I think then the scaling challenges from there was kind of, obviously once I went full-time, how do I find business clients? How do I make this scale so it's not just me? I don't want to just be the person on the tools all the time. I can't earn more than however much I can charge an hour at that point. So how do I grow a business out of this rather than being a lifestyle? And then the challenge was, employees 1, 2, 3 start to grow things, and then it's like, well, now I need to start running this, and how do I do that? So learning to become a manager and learning to become a leader. I'm not sure I've learned it right, to be fair, but we try. And just changing the hats. I think again, like if you speak to anybody that's come from that real small business piece, they'll tell you they wore every hat. I mean, I was sales, I was marketing, I was finance, I was admin. My colleagues will tell you I'm probably not very good at most of those things. So the technology side I was okay with, so that worked. And then gradually over time, you find people that are better than you at doing those things, and you bring them on. Yeah. And it's that scale piece. And I think if I had to started up with a load of money, I'd have probably just gone straight out and got good salespeople, because that's just getting your foot in the door is the hardest thing.
Oh, it's so interesting though, hearing about how you sort of started and then the scaling up, like that personable service of actually going into someone's house.
It really makes
you think how it's
tool bag,
changed.
kind of van that was branded up, ID card. It felt like being a plumber, but I mean, it was. I think, jokes aside, it's like IT is kind of like, it is a utility almost, like corporates now and people at home as well. You value that so much. When the Wi-Fi breaks, it's the worst thing ever. It's like when, I'd rather we had a power cut than lost the Wi-Fi. I could sit there with a candle as long as I can use my phone and still do Netflix or something. It's like...
Exactly. But so you touched on that wearing multiple hats situation, but obviously you're managing director of OneFix, and you also sit on the board for Catering Graduates.
Yes, I do.
How do you balance the commercial demands of IT with a passion for customer experience in motorsport?
Yeah, quite different, aren't they? Yeah. Well, so I should probably explain to people what Catering Graduates is all about, actually. Okay, so I got probably one of my passions is motorsport and cars. So I like cars, I like driving. I started to look at how I could actually go and race cars around about 2017, 2018, because I really thought, this is what I want to do. This is my hobby. I want to go and do this. So I found out about a particular car called Caterham, which is a little two-seater kind of sports car. And Caterham, it's almost like a kit car, but the people that do that, they run their own race series. So they have this thing that they, at the time, and it's still called now, called the Academy. And what you do is you pay your money, you can either have the car built and delivered to you, or you can have the car as a kit and you build it. And I thought, well, I like engineering, I'll have the car as a kit. And actually, great journey. Me and my dad built this car over winter in 2017, ready to race it in 2018. And basically there was 50 people that had all done the same thing, and we all got together and we all then did a year of racing around UK circuits. We learned how to become race drivers, and then went and did this, and then kind of joined this ladder of what they call Catering Motorsport. So I was with them for a few years, progressing up their kind of series and improving the car. And then it got to the stage where I thought, I still want to race this car, but I want to race with some different people, and I joined a club called Catering Graduates, and that's kind of it's more of a kind of a members owned club. So the official Catering Motorsport is owned by the company. This is a kind of owned by the members of the club. Yeah. So I did a few years of racing with them and thought, how do I give something back? So they asked me to join the board. I accepted. Lovely. Ended up kind of landing a position of, we call it customer experience, but basically making sure that our members are looked after. Yeah. Doing some really different things to what I do in the day job. So making sure, for example, that we have a marquee company lined up to come put a marquee up at the event, that we've got the caterers coming, and all this stuff that, I had no experience with any of that stuff, but it was great fun. In terms of balancing it, I think the challenge there, it's just time. And actually for me, for that part, it's primarily weekends. We tend to meet as a board in an evening once a month, so it doesn't take out too much of my daytime work time. And it's just something I love, and you don't get paid for it. It's completely kind of a freebie gig, but it's great fun, and actually fantastic when you see, you come to the end of the year, you see that we've had probably 50, 60 people turning up at all these different events through the year, enjoying themselves, and the feedback we get is brilliant. And actually that's the thing that makes, again, I love that. For me, it's all about the people and the customer service, and I think that's what reflects back in OneFix of what I do in the day job, is that piece of saying, actually, for me, it's about the people and the journey.
Exactly.
And I just like helping people, so that ticks my boxes,
That's
I guess.
lovely. And obviously, we've touched on your journey and the change you've seen in IT over the last kind of 2 decades, but what are some of the biggest shifts you've witnessed in how small businesses use technology?
I mean, it's changed considerably. So when you look, I mean, I guess, even over the last 5-10 years, you know, it would have been, I think it was very undervalued, I would say. So when we were kind of really breaking into the corporate sort of space, probably, I don't know, 2012, 2013, when we really had a push to get more corporate business, at that point in time, it was quite a hard sell even to kind of get a managed service contract out there, because people just said, well, look, I just buy a PC. When it breaks, I'll replace it. If it breaks, I might pick up the phone and phone somebody, but I don't really want to pay a service contract. I don't really want to worry about security and all this sort of stuff, because it just wasn't, people weren't taking it seriously. I think the big sort of seismic shift around that was, I'll probably get my dates wrong, I think it was 2018, which was kind of WannaCry, which was this huge ransomware attack that hit the NHS and it hit all these big businesses. But essentially at that point, it was one of those kind of worms that spread all over the place, and loads of small businesses were getting hit. There was this whole rise of ransomware, with companies kind of coming in and finding their devices had been encrypted and they were being asked to pay Bitcoin ransoms, or you know. And actually at that point, suddenly people went, well, maybe we need to start taking this seriously. Maybe actually, even as an SME, we need to think about what are we doing about our security. Who's looking after this stuff? We can't just be picking up the phone when it breaks, because that's really unproductive. So the progression for us has been around kind of how do we convince people that actually they need that. You know, it's much more effective to have stuff that's well managed and doesn't break. And then, you know, they're not having to pick up the phone when it breaks because we're managing it. And then I think the most recent, you know, the next seismic shift really, and you know, I know we're going to talk about it a lot because it is the big topic, is the AI thing, and that's been, you know, it has been an absolute eye opener. I think, you know, it opened my eyes when it got to the point where my mum was starting to ask me about ChatGPT, and I'm like, you know, you've got that kind of technology curve of adopters and the early adopters, and you know, it just the speed it's picked up, and I think you know, once people. AI as a tooling has been around for years. There's been things in place for ages, but actually ChatGPT just switched on something in everybody when they went, wow, this is actually really impressive. I mean, I think if you think about it, like, I don't know if you've got any home devices like Alexa or Google Home. You think, I mean, Alexa's pretty dumb, isn't it, really? You ask it a question, half the time it doesn't understand what you're saying, or it comes back with some nonsense result, and it's still quite dumb. Sorry, Apple. Sorry, Amazon even, it's still quite dumb. And that's the thing, when you compare it, and suddenly you've got ChatGPT, and it's so much smarter. I mean, the first thing is, why haven't they just done that with Alexa? I don't know. There's obviously a reason.
That's so true. She never stops when I tell her to stop
Alexa,
or turn it.
Shut up.
Stop. It's so true.
It's so annoying. Honestly, it's the one piece of tech I really want to throw out the window. But yeah, that's the seismic shift. I mean, that came on board, and I think, you know, everybody saw it. Everybody realised what they could do. Everybody started playing with it, and suddenly thought, this is a big, big change. And then now the big challenge is how you control that and how you manage that within corporations to make sure your data is not just walking out the door left, right, and centre, and all these privacy concerns and, you know, best practice use of AI. And I think we've got, as always happens with these things, we've got this stage where everybody's run ahead, and now we're catching back up with kind of actually controlling this and regulating it and understanding what we should and shouldn't do. But you know, I think it really is just the beginning. I know everybody harps on about it, but it really is. I don't think it's going to steal jobs, but I think it's just amazing heavy lifting, and I think it's going to change what we need to do and how we do our day-to-day lives.
So, I mean, that's the perfect segue. I was going to ask you kind of what's your take on AI and automation at the moment with all this sort of emerging tech, but especially in the context of supporting small businesses, do you think it's hype, help, or a bit of both?
That's a great question. I reckon, it is a bit of both. And the reason why it is a bit of both, I think, is that if you look about a year ago, suddenly every single product you ever bought has AI now. You know, it's like AI. There's an AI Oral-B toothbrush now. Do you really need AI to brush your teeth? And what actually AI is, it's not doing anything.
What is it doing?
It's not doing any AI at all. It's absolute nonsense. But that's the thing, you know, bang the badge on, sell more products. So, you know, everybody who's going out and procuring software as a service or procuring tooling is going, right, what AI stuff does it do? So people are going, oh, we've got this bit of AI. Honestly, the thing that the value that I can see really is the stuff. I mean, there are core AI sort of engines and things that are brilliant. There's AI specific stuff. I mean, things around like medical and, you know, the tooling around things like speeding up diagnoses by medical imaging. AI tooling is fantastic. That's a really good innovation. The key thing I think is partly around for me is process automation. So actually, this is again something that's been around for years, and we've been talking about it for years. No one really paid any attention, but now they are, because it's now AI. But essentially taking your common things, looking at how you can integrate them. So almost all the software that most people use has APIs. You can program things in and out of them using tooling such as, I don't know, Zapier, N8N, those kind of online toolings where you can grab in AI, you can link APIs together, you can start to get all your tools to talk to each other and move things around. That's massive value and huge time saving. So I think that's the cool bit. I think the hype is the people that just go, yes, we've got AI in the product, and is it adding a lot of value? Probably not. I don't know what your experience is, but some of these other third-party AI tools, they're just not very good.
No, I know. I think for me, the biggest game changer has been ChatGPT. It's just so, especially sometimes, I understand that sort of thing where people are like, oh, is it making us lazy because we are using it? But I'm actually thinking it's been useful in sometimes situations now where I haven't dealt with something before, and I'm like, how do I even respond to that or say? Exactly. So I would actually say it helps me make my job slightly easier to kind of deal with things.
I think the key thing when I've sort of played around is that I've seen the different emulations of the kind of the model. Yeah. And you kind of, I'm a bit guilty of doing something in there and going, well, the output wasn't great, I won't bother again.
Yeah.
Then you come back 6 months later and you do the same thing, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. So, I mean, I used it recently for putting together kind of a specific sales commission plan around a kind of role I wasn't sure about. And I sense checked the data, I was like, A, it's amazing, B, it's come up with some amazing strategies. And the fact now it's more responsive, so it will come back and say, I can also now do this bit for you. Do you want me to put that into Excel? Do you want me to make you know, all these things, you just think, wow, it's just the heavy lifting. I mean, you don't have to pick it up and copy it.
Exactly.
It gives you a great starting point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you played around with Copilot at all, the Microsoft tooling?
I haven't,
no. So for us, again, that's a huge kind of key thing. So Copilot, the standard freebie one is essentially kind of like ChatGPT, but the paid for part from Microsoft where it can absorb all of that corporate documentation, you've got all the stuff you've done, and then you can start to almost harness ChatGPT to instantly create you documents, create proposals. That's super powerful.
Really clever.
Really good.
Yeah. It's amazing to see where it will go. Like, who knows? Moving on from that slightly, where do you see the biggest opportunities for businesses to save time or scale using such tools?
That's a great question. I think in terms of time saving and scaling, for me, it is that bolting together your tools, because we've been really guilty of it. So we've done a piece recently where we've looked at we probably have 15 or 16 different pieces of software as a service from different vendors doing different things. Pulling that data into common places and being able to manipulate it is key, and it's going to help scale. For us, even things like building out kind of automated onboarding, automated offboarding, taking certain kind of key repetitive things that people are doing and just finding ways to automate them. And using some AI logic there. So it's not AI, because we are using some of the GPT stuff around the output of these tools, but actually how do we just take stuff that everybody does every day, take that boring bit away so they can use their brain power to do the really complicated stuff that actually they need to do. And that's where I think that's going to help. And certainly for small businesses, that's the beauty of the AI stuff, is it's really accessible. It's not expensive. The tooling is cheap, or some of it is open source, so you can even go free, and you can really leverage that very quickly to grow. And I think we're going to start to see some really clever innovations, I think, around kind of startups coming in, a bit like if you look at, say, like Uber when they came along, and they're not a cab company, they're a company that just has an amazing scheduling engine, and they pay people for their time, and they disrupted that market. I think there'll be similar things with AI startups where they're going to come in and they're not going to just be doing AI, they're actually going to come in and go like, let's find this industry that's really manual and that's doing stuff in a really traditional way, and let's just blow out the water and kind of automate that and sense check it. So I mean, I'm sure at some point, I'm sure there's people working on this at the moment, but things like legal, when you think about, case law, I know there's been examples where certain solicitors have been caught out for using ChatGPT, because it is a bit of a, it does hallucinate, it does make up references. But if you were to invest the time and train up your own AI engine on all of the case law and all the specificities around the stuff that you do, getting that to at least do the start of the legal case, and then you go, well, let's pay someone who's the bright person to then do the check work on the end of it, but we don't need all the paralegals and people doing that. So I'm sure there are certain places where we'll see this kind of disruptive AI coming in and really making a difference in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. So.
Definitely. Coming full circle now, back to your journey. Obviously, you said you took a bit of an unconventional kind of path into tech, but what advice would you give to someone who doesn't have a degree but is passionate about getting into the industry today?
I think it's just get out there and find a way to start doing it. I mean, for me, I was lucky that the people that I went with weren't expecting a degree. Then again, the job probably wasn't at that kind of level anyway. But actually, just getting your foot in. I mean, for us, we are on a recruitment drive at the moment. We're recruiting kind of technicians and engineers. The degree is the last thing I'm looking at. If I'm brutally honest, I'm looking at prior work experience, the aptitude. For us, it's the soft skills. Again, I know sort of talked about that service piece, but we kind of did a bit of a soul searching the other day, and we've realised we truly are just relationship centric. So for us, it's all about the customer service. If we've got someone who's got great personality and great personable skills and good tech skills, we can train the other bits around the edge of it. So I think don't be put off by the fact if you haven't got a degree. Don't be put off by not having certain qualifications. It's going to rule you out of certain jobs, but actually have a look at that. Have a look at the apprenticeship route. We've been really, really, really successful with apprentices, to be fair. We've invested a lot of time and money into that route and bringing people on. I was surprised. I hadn't realised actually. I was in my head. I always thought apprentices, 16 to kind of 22, 23. Apprentices can be any age. So we've had some of our senior staff going through doing apprenticeships on leadership and management, and actually, again, the funding's there from the government to do that. It really helps you move on. So I think if you haven't got the physical qualifications that's holding you back, I would look at the apprenticeship route, because I think from my point of view, you're getting the hands-on experience, and that's so valuable. And actually, if you consider, I'm not saying don't do a degree, but I'm saying if you look at that route, you should take a degree now. The cost, the debt you're saddled with, the cost of the student loan, versus getting straight into workplace and earning, maybe not earning such a salary, but you've got such a head start on those people at uni, and then you've got the tech skills. So when they're coming out, you've got 3 or 4 years on your CV already of real life experience. I think that's a great way to go. I'm surprised more people don't do it. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice before starting your business, what would it be?
Don't do it. Do you know what? No, I do. I love what I do. Don't be afraid to take the risks. That would be the key thing. I mean, I took quite a few at the start, but I think the thing I've learned over the years, and it's been a honed skill, is actually fail fast. So actually go and do something, figure out if it doesn't work pretty quickly, because you can spend a year or two sort of doing something slowly and not doing a great effort with it and thinking it's going to work and it doesn't. So I think, like you look at marketing, that's a prime example. You can do something really slowly and just sort of have a little dabble, and you think, well, it might be working, and you're spending money. Whereas if you just go big, put the budget in up front, do it. If it fails, you just don't do it again.
Exactly.
And learn from the mistakes. That's the key. Don't repeat the same thing twice.
Yeah. And we come on to the trending in tech round, and obviously it's about AI. So the UK government has proposed amendments to copyright laws concerning artificial intelligence. These changes aim to allow AI companies to train their models using copyrighted materials without that prior permission, provided copyright holders do not opt out. So it's sparked significant backlash, of course, from artists and creators, notable figures like Paul McCartney and Elton John. They fear it kind of undermines the creators' rights and benefits foreign tech firms. So, Craig, what's your take on the UK government's proposed changes to the copyright laws that would allow AI companies to use these copyrighted materials without prior permission? And how do you think this might affect small businesses and the tech industry at large?
That's a good take. Well, I think starting off on that law piece, I think it's really tricky. And the reason I think it's really tricky is because, as a human, you're exposed to all that stuff. So, I know the music of Paul McCartney. I know the music of Elton John. I am the least musical person ever. I love listening to music. I couldn't create it. But if I could, that stuff's going to be sinking into my brain, and I'm going to be using that as a source of reference, regardless. I'm not, not necessarily copying, but you think about how many pieces of music take ideas and concepts from others and move that forwards. So on the one piece, you think, well, how is training an AI on that? Kind of any different, really. And if they're getting the option to opt out, then is that okay? I think so. But then at the same time, I'm also conflicted with the fact that if you train it on all of this stuff, I mean, what's the value? Is it just going to go and rip those people off and steal it? I don't know. It's really tricky. I think, to my mind, I always think art is one of those things that's really hard to kind of to take with AI, because you look at AI generated images, they can be fantastic, but they're still AI generated images. It's not been that personal piece. I think art is such a kind of a sort of personal, visceral thing that I think I don't think we're ever going to not have artists anymore, if that makes sense. I think, in fact, I personally think that the value of artists will go up in terms of, because once you get into this world where everything's kind of just created, then automatically created, then actually there's so much value in the manual process around that. So I wonder whether it'll enhance the value of truly created things. But I think, if you'd have asked me 2 years ago, and I'd have said, you look at, say, the output 2 years ago of some of these engines, like they're generating art imagery and generating music, you get, they're pretty crummy. now, I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, you get, if you see some of these things on YouTube where people are kind of creating parody songs and they're creating the vocals that sound exactly like the real artist, and it's like, oh, that's a bit scary.
It's very interesting. It was making me think about, because obviously I think you can't beat going and seeing your favourite artist live or going to a concert. It's an amazing experience. That I was thinking, oh, you have to be able to see that person. But then I also thought of, the ABBA Voyage.
I was about to say, ABBA Voyage, exactly.
How
I mean,
interesting,
and that's sanctioned by them, obviously. But, you're not seeing the real thing, but you're seeing what they've created for you. And it's, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I hear it's absolutely amazing. And that's so on the line, isn't it? When you think about that line between like that kind of the digital, the virtual, the real. I mean, who knows? Who knows where we're going to be? Because I think I wouldn't take a bet on anything Mark Zuckerberg guesses, because he seems to have been getting it wrong. But his idea was that we'd all have our Meta headsets on and we'd be living in the metaverse. Now, I love VR and it's great fun, and I do have a Meta headset, but I wouldn't want to sit with that one all day. So I think there is something about the real world and things being tangible. I've just not that. I don't know. I can't see it being that. But do you know what? If I was an artist, I would be worried. I'd be worried that it's going to steal my work. But I guess again, small businesses that are in that creative space, I can imagine they'd be very worried. I can see that.
Yeah.
But actually, in terms of general small business, I think the challenge for small businesses, well, actually all businesses, to be fair, is making sure that you keep your intellectual property off of like public AI. So the biggest thing we've seen, certainly as a trend with companies, is where they've not got on the front foot. The leadership team haven't gone out there and said, here's what we want you to do with AI, and here's actually what we don't want you to do. And they haven't put controls in place, so they potentially haven't blocked some of these third-party tools. And what's happened is the content's just leaking. So, people go, well, boss hasn't said I can't, so I've got ChatGPT on my phone and I've just put the annual report in there, I'm doing something, or I've put the latest product spec in for the new development product. And don't quote me on this because I'll get the names wrong, but I think it was Samsung. There's a noted case where one of the new phones was essentially the details of it was completely leaked by AI because they were pumping that information into, it was probably OpenAI at the time, and that information came back out. So I think having those controls over actually, like if you're going to put your data into an AI engine, you need to know exactly what they're going to do with it. You need to know they're not going to train the model with it, because otherwise you become part of the training set, and then that super intellectual property that you guys developed suddenly becomes everybody's property. So that's the risk. I think it's just the creep of knowledge. And I mean, when you use ChatGPT now, you can ask it about a book, and it will say, "Oh no, I don't have access. I haven't read all these books." But you can ask it probing questions about the contents of a book, and it seems to know. So it's definitely been trained on stuff. I'm not saying they're breaking any copyright laws, but it definitely knows stuff about certain books. And it's like, so I think I wonder if the genie's already out of the bottle with some of this stuff anyway. And are we ever going to get the lid back on? I think now it's about controlling how we use that. And again, for small businesses, just be really mindful about what you're doing, what tools you're using.
Yeah.
If you like Canva, that's a great production tool that now has AI stuff in there. Has anybody read the policy to say what they do with that data? I mean, I haven't, so I couldn't tell you. But that's the thing. Most people, you're doing your job. You go, well, that's great. That saves me time. I'm just going to go and use it. You don't go and get permission. You don't get it. So that's probably what we need to start doing, is thinking a bit more about that.
Definitely. We come on to the final section of the podcast, which is the this or that quickfire round. Excellent. So, Craig, are you an iPhone or a Samsung person?
Can I say neither?
Yes, yeah.
No, I'd go Samsung over Apple. I've had both. I've actually gone Google now. I'm Google Pixel, and I prefer that over both. So.
Interesting, yeah. And Spotify or Apple?
Spotify.
And Netflix or going to the cinema?
Oh, it's a tough one. Netflix in general, but going to the cinema if it's epic.
Yeah.
Because you've got to.
Yeah. And laptops or tablets?
Laptops all day.
And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
Oh, that's another toughie. I love both. ChatGPT is definitely more useful.
Mm-hmm. And video calls or voice notes?
Oh, video calls, voice notes are so annoying. They're so annoying. Yeah. I'd rather you just message me and typed it. A voice note, you have to take the time to listen to it. It's a pain.
It's like a mini podcast. Well, the ones I get are certainly mini podcasts.
Well, it's like someone couldn't be bothered to type out, so then you have to spend 2 minutes of your life listening to what they've got to say. So, okay.
Oh, and finally, Craig, if you could bring back one piece of tech that's either now evolved or it no longer exists, what would it be and why?
This is totally out there. This is off the radar. I love pinball machines, and they do still exist, but they've kind of changed over time. And I've got a real thing about the 1990s. There was some amazing arcade and pinball machines, and that whole arcade sort of thing has kind of gone. It's starting to come back now. I've noticed there's more retro gaming starting to come back, and that's what I love. So I would say proper analog, clack clack click click. lights flashing. I just love all that. I mean, it is tech, but it's not your traditional tech. So that's mine. Would be bring back proper quality, like 90s pinball machines or older, all the clunky stuff.
I love that. I think the biggest thing is the nostalgia, isn't it? 'Cause there's actually a place in London called like NQ64, and they do, they've got
all
like
the retro
dance
gaming.
mats in there.
Love that.
Like,
so years and years ago, I was at an IT conference actually, and a friend of mine, we were talking about this, and we're like, we want to start something called Barcade, and we're going to open a bar and have all the arcade machines. I mean, it's been done now, but didn't do it at the time. Should have done it. Didn't have the money. But I love that. I mean, that would be my dream. If I had any other job, it would have been like running a seaside arcade with all the little penny push. I don't know why. I just love that stuff. So,
I love that. But as we say, that brings us to the end of this week's episode.
Fantastic.
It's been so enjoyable chatting with you, Craig.
And you. Thank you
for coming on.
Thanks for having me.